Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after a very sound, solid game by the Winnipeg Jets that now has them over 500 for the first time this season, after a start in which we felt that they weren't getting the results that they maybe deserved, and digging themselves a little bit of an early season hole with a 1-3 start. Now all of a sudden they've won 3 straight games, 4-3 on the year, with the rest of the West kind of seeming to be below 500. That puts them in a pretty good spot to start out here. You don't have to be that good to be one of the top teams in the West right now. But the idea that the Winnipeg Jets have now gone 3 games in a row, very much so in the process, playing the blueprint, playing the team identity that we were expecting from this team, and to consider the fact they weren't getting the results before. This is what you do. If you're not getting the results, but you're playing the right way, you keep going and you keep going and you keep going and you make adjustments and you clean up the mistakes and you do all those kind of things. But you don't lose faith in the system. And the Winnipeg Jets did a great job, it seems, in retrospect, of really sticking with things, not getting frustrated at the beginning of the year, not jumping out of their shell, not deciding let's go back to full-on snake charmer or all the different kind of things that we've done over the years. Hey, Rick Bowness has said it about this team last year. They went through the first more than half of the season. It was about 45, 46 games, absolutely playing the blueprint, and then all of a sudden decide to go back to the way that they used to be. We know that's a pull with this team. We know that they are attracted, and the magnet is at all times seemingly trying to pull them back to a different kind of place. So it's always interesting that when the Jets struggle, you have to wonder if those results or those struggles will result in them kind of abandoning the things that look like they're working for things that may have worked somewhat in the past, may not have worked somewhat in the past, but we know where that record takes us. We know where that idea of playing the snake charmer and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't lead to full-on success in the end. The Winnipeg Jets very much stuck to what was working and then cleaned up what wasn't working over the process. And now all of a sudden, like I'd said, 3 straight wins. The most important part of that is the defensive aspect of this. It's something Rick Bowness had said after that game against the Vegas Golden Knights, another game in which I think a lot of Jets fans would have looked at it and thought the Winnipeg Jets deserved a better fate. Didn't get a better fate, and Rick Bowness was not one of the people who thought that. He didn't think they deserved a better fate, thought there was too many soft plays. They weren't hard on the puck in the most important moments of the game. It looks like they've cleaned that up. The one thing that he'd said, this team isn't going anywhere if we don't stop allowing 4 to 5 goals a game. 19 goals allowed in their first 4 games and 5 goals allowed in their next 3. So that's like what, 4.75 points or goals against a game in the first 4 and something like 1.66 in the last 3. The Jets have cleaned things up. They're looking really great defensively. Of course, Connor Hellebuyck is part of that. That is no doubt about it. We can't deny that, but I'd like to get into it a little bit later on in the show. It's too big an idea to get into here before we bring Kenny into the show, but I don't throw everything on his shoulders, even at times of the game where they were really getting, it seemed, bowled over, and definitely the momentum was squarely in the behind the Detroit Red Wings in this game. Yes, Connor Hellebuyck was the first star of the game. He was the first star of the game against the St. Louis Blues. It's getting to be a lather, rinse, repeat kind of situation. But the Winnipeg Jets defense deserves some credit for what's happening there, the team defense overall, and I'll get into that a little bit later. And you know who the best person for me to get into that with? Well, that would be my main man, Ken Wiebe, who is down at the game in Detroit, a building I've never been in before. It's one of the, I think, 2 buildings that I've never been to in the NHL. For some reason, I can't get a game in Detroit. Ken can, and he's going to show it off to you right here. He's going to prove it to you as he's down there. Here he comes, the man with the best music in the business. Here comes Kenny. Kenny, I've got a feeling that Frankie and the boys would be very happy with one of us right now, and Huss and Remo would be very happy with the other of us, because I've got my Winnipeg Sports Talk hoodie going on here. But you got the styles, you got the fits going on, and of course you do, because Frankie and the boys down at Vittorio Rossi on Corden Avenue have taken care of you in the past. They will continue to do so in the future. And hey, folks, we would suggest if you need to be taken care of and you need to dress like $1,000,000, we know the exact people to send you to. That would be Frankie and the boys down at Vittorio Rossi. You know what to do. Head on down there, walk in, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie or one of the boys, and they will put you in a fit like Ken is wearing tonight. Looking like $1,000,000, my man. As were the Winnipeg Jets. What did you make of their game?
Indeed, just a quick one. This is a great arena, buddy. You're going to love it when you finally get here. It is absolutely dynamite, and I have to tell you that it's one of the buildings that's fun to be back in again. Detroit is excited about their team, and for good reason. They're a team that is fun to watch. They have some skill for sure. And yeah, the building's rocking. It's back to being pretty much full, and that's good news for the NHL. But in terms of the Jets, Sean, outside of that early push that the Red Wings made in the third period, where they kind of made it a little bit dicey for the Jets for a stretch of time there. Pretty tidy game. Connor Hellebuyck did need to be sharp, and I think he has been incredibly sharp these last three starts. But overall, I agree that the team defense is improving for the most part. Not a lot off the rush today, which I thought was a big development considering that was where they were loose against the St. Louis Blues on Tuesday night. And overall, a couple important players getting the proverbial monkey off the back and snapping the goose eggs this evening in Nikolai Ehlers and Nino Niederreiter. So I would say overall, Jets were solid. Was it their best game of the year? No, but I do think it was a solid game overall, and they did a lot of great things. And, let's not underappreciate the ability to keep a power play that was running at 41.4% going into the game off the board, even though, and more importantly, Sean, discipline was very critical for the Jets, only taking the 2 minor penalties in the contest. So when you're going up against a team that's been dominant with the man advantage, discipline was key. They were outstanding on that front. Obviously, Connor Hellebuyck did his part, but I thought overall they limited those real high danger chances to a group that really moves the puck around. It's funny. Funny is maybe not the right word, but Scott Arniel said after the game, Sean, that he thought that this was the best moving power play the Jets have faced. And lo and behold, the Jets just faced the Edmonton Oilers 2 games ago. So that is an ultimate. That is the ultimate compliment to a team when you're looking at historical films to see the Oilers were a team last year that were the best in history in terms of power play efficiency ever. So impressive there.
Chris Jericho there for you. Sorry.
Indeed, love it. 4-line game again for the Jets. Lots of contributions throughout, and I thought the puck management had been an issue for this team for a good stretch of games at times. That was not the case today. They really did not allow a ton of odd man rushes, and they were very good. And I would say that people don't Detroit. No, this is not a smoke and mirrors situation at 5-1-1. This is a good hockey team. No. Dylan Larkin is an excellent player who is leading the NHL in points, I believe, and DeBrincat leading the league in goals, and that's no joke. I mean, yes, they gave up 1 to that line, but that was on a rebound, and wasn't a defensive letdown in that game. So lots to like for the Jets. 3 wins in a row, and it's funny, right? We after the way the team started, you say, and even the players, Mason Appleton, this was a great quote after the game, Sean. He made it very clear that even the players were like, "Dang, how can we be 1-2?" It's one of those situations where, or 1-3, right? I mean, this was a situation where they couldn't believe their record based on how they had been playing, and this is why. This is the kind of team they feel they have, and let's not kid ourselves. They were giving up 4 or 5 goals a game, and now they're giving up 1 and 2. So that's a humongous difference. And for that reason, I mean, we're going to get up, I don't want to, get everything out at the buffet here, but for all of the folks wondering about Mark Scheifele's two-way player defense, he's got a few examples to circle on the video clips that are going to show up before the next game of excellent efforts in the first period to break up goals in the defensive zone. So I would say that's a really good development for the Winnipeg Jets as well.
I'm just going to answer a couple quick questions here. I know that some people have been asking. Savage 9100 says, what's the other arena you haven't been to? It's actually would be 3 now, because I keep forgetting that Seattle hopped into the league. I haven't been to Climate Pledge yet. And it's Detroit. And then other than that, it is, strangely enough, Vancouver. But the explanation for that is that
Murph.
You don't have, I don't need to go there. Murph's there, right? We've always got in all the Canadian markets now for various different reasons. I've been pulled into, I covered the Montreal Canadiens on their way all to the end, spent some time in Toronto, worked at I worked Toronto not for hockey, but for basketball when the Raptors were on. I covered that down the stretch. I'd been there because I lived in Toronto for a couple of years and went to some games there. And I've worked games in Ottawa, Edmonton, Calgary before. So strangely enough, Vancouver is the one that I haven't got out to. Murph is an institution out in Vancouver. So there's no need for Renny to get out there when it's time. And usually if it's late games on the weekend, it's Scott Oak territory, right? Which we saw. The late game goes to him because of after hours. And if Winnipeggers needed a reminder of why you need Scott Oak on after hours, they got it with that Hellebuyck interview on the weekend. Ken, you had something to say?
Yeah, just some people have been asking about Mullet, and some folks have forgotten that you and I were both there for the for the first game at Mullet Arena last year.
Winnipeg Jets played the first ever NHL game there.
Yeah, and Sean rocked the mullet on the show afterwards.
That's
right. We'll have to get people to check the receipts here. Here it is. There it is, people.
That very mullet.
Indeed.
Mullet was a certain choice of headwear on that night, and I do know that Tishu, I've brought this up a couple times in the show, not because I just keep running the same comment. Tishu is like raindrops. It's like Chinese water torture dropping headband over and over into the comments, and I can't deny that. I know, and hey, I'll be honest, I'd rather have Tishu calling for the headband rather than calling out my takes, which he loves to do so often. So let's do it, Kenny. Let's make this Sean's headband version of the Kenny and Renny show. Let's get at it, buddy. Ken, I got to say, I've been trying to get that song as my ringtone for so long. I just cannot figure it out. Remo laughs at me all the time because he figures he could do it in a couple of seconds there. But I would love to one time take a fine at the, because it's jokingly a fine for us reporters if we're in a scrum with the players and the phone goes off. I think if the phone ever went off and it was rocking Sean's headband, I think I would just let it roll and be like, I'll take the fine, ladies and gentlemen, because this is how you take a fine in style. I wanted to get to Connor Hellebuyck. Our main man, Marshall, was just on there and said he was worth every cent. It wasn't that long ago, Ken, at the beginning of the season, and I mean, I can understand. He gave reason for people to be a little bit skeptical, if you can say that, if there are a couple games gives you reason. But rocking a save percentage below 800 put Connor Hellebuyck in a situation where those who wanted to criticize him had recency bias to criticize him, but people were calling out the contract. People were doing all kinds of crazy stuff. I kept bringing it up, putting it up on screen, and giving that's crazy eyes to it. But boy, oh boy, dig a little bit deeper into the bounce back we've seen from him, because again, it's another night I look at and I just think that he never looked challenged. He never looked in trouble. He never looked scrambly. He just looks like he's got entire control of the net, and in the process kind of looks like he's in the heads of the teams he's playing at this stage.
Yeah, he was excellent. I mean, there's no two ways about it. He made 19 saves in the third period, and the Jets were getting caved in the early part of the third period before they got the insurance goal from Mason Appleton. There's no doubt about that. I do agree. To me, this was the same as the other day. It was where the degree of difficulty only didn't look challenging or more challenging because of how sharp and precise Connor Hellebuyck has been. I think it was important for him. Lauren Brissois got the net for the one game. Connor Hellebuyck spent some time with Wade Flaherty as he always does, and he came back and did exactly what was required of him. Outstanding against the Edmonton Oilers, rock solid against the St. Louis Blues, and then against one of the teams that is kind of on the rise here in the Eastern Conference, really stood tall in a game where that game could have gone south. I mean, after the Jets got the bang-bang specials late in the first period to go up 2-0, 2 goals in 58 seconds from Ehlers and Kyle Connor, Hellebuyck had to be really good, because I thought in the second period the Jets were they kind of let the Red Wings back into the game, and then in the third, the Red Wings were all over the Jets. Jets survived the power play, then get an excellent goal. What a play by Lowry to Appleton. Absolute doorstep special at a time where this is like, not only did that line score twice, yes, one was an empty netter. I don't care about that. They went up against Dylan Larkin's line and outscored them 2-1. I mean, you can say whatever you want about an extra attacker goal, but that line was against the Red Wings' top players. They scored 2, Larkin's line scored 1. I mean, that checking line had been good in a lot of areas. Mason Appleton now up to 3 goals on the season, which is important. We talked a ton about Mason Appleton and the importance of him needing to be providing a little bit more offense. This is a guy who, put up great numbers in the American League and had shown some signs of being able to be a double-digit goal scorer consistently, but he missed some time with some injuries and then didn't have the offensive flow going as much, and now he's really starting to, he's playing with a lot of confidence and really doing a great job on that line. And for me, I think Nino getting a goal, even though it was an empty netter, I think that allows him to take a deep breath. I thought there had been times he looked a little bit frustrated out there, Sean. We know early in the year, especially in the opener, he had the 3-quarter open net against Markstrom, hit him in the pad. Looked like he was getting a little bit frustrated with the lack of a goal up until that point. And lo and behold, there he gets an important one in the game here this evening. And I liked a lot about that line. And, another line we liked a lot is, Vladislav Nemestikov with Nikolai Ehlers and Cole Perfetti. Scott Arniel thought it was Ehlers' best game of the year, and I couldn't agree more. Perfetti with another just elite vision type of pass on Ehlers' goal. And, I thought Nemestikov played another important game. A couple shot blocks. Man, did he ever make an incredible play to set up Kyle Connor after the Jets survived the other power play in the game, Sean. What a move. He danced around the defenseman and really made a nice play there. So, yeah, lots to like about the Jets on a lot of fronts. And another one of those games where, Kyle Connor scores in front of family and friends and racks up, I think now that's his 44th career game-winning goal. I'm going to double-check that, but I'm quite sure that number is accurate. And that's incredible. Like that's an incredible number of GWG, Sean.
No doubt. I'm just going to back this up and get right back to Hellebuyck, just where we started with this. I think that the way that he did not panic, and the way that I think that there's just this idea. If you remember a couple of years ago, he had a bad start, and Lauren Brissois had a good start to the season, and people were talking about there being a goaltending controversy. And I mean, we'd said it on this show, like if Lauren Brissois had gone in and just shot the lights out in that game against the Vegas Golden Knights, you'd have to think of putting him right back into the net and give him a chance, a guy who's stated that he wants to be the starter. I do think that there's something about those competitive juices that come up with Connor Hellebuyck, that as soon as there's kind of this idea that someone else could even take a hint of taking over the crease and having a claim to it, beyond anything that Hellebuyck would allow the other goalie to have, which he, in the past hasn't allowed much. He's wanted a lot of games and a lot of games and a lot of games. I just think that the response coming back from that and the idea that the Jets, you'd said it, Ken, like them in the room, I think they were surprised they were 1-3. And I think Helly just thought to himself, okay, I'm just going to go put a stop to this, right? And he was capable of it, right? Because the rest of the team was playing well, and we do know that there was, there was issues with the goaltending at the beginning. They hadn't had a quality start from their goaltender in the first 4 games. We talk about them being 1-3. They're probably 1-3 because their goaltenders have let them down. I like this barometer. Like when it comes to all the numbers and all those kind of things, I'll leave that to the real deep diving analytics folks. The number that I like time and time again is if you outduel the goaltender on the other side of the ice from you. And there is no doubt about it that Connor Hellebuyck in his last 3 games has far and away been the better goaltender in the goaltender's duel, and he was again tonight. He's been absolutely rock solid. So give a shout out to him. And hey, I'm going to give a shout out to the folks at Cambrian Credit Union who, Ken, you and I both find rock solid because we've gone to them for our banking. We've gone to them for our mortgage. They are rock solid in the community when it comes to dishing out sponsorship. Take a look at that list. Some of the things that they're helping out in town, like right off the bat, the Bear Clan Patrol. These are really helpful things in our neighborhoods that Cambrian is helping to make happen. And of course, all their donations, the same thing. Rock solid they are, and a big reason, Ken, why you and I have been longtime customers of theirs and take the biggest financial purchase of our lives and put it in their hands. Also wanted to get right away to Sweet Lou, because I know a lot of times people have to wait to give their Sweet Louisms, and I know some people are just like sitting on. I bet there's some people out there that have a list. Couldn't they start typing out? So let's get at it. Start typing out your Sweet Louisms, and Ken, give Sweet Lou a shout out while you're at it, bud.
Yeah, for all the folks who are looking for realty needs that need to be met, you can contact Lou Ferlin at Roll a Page Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. If his email is lou@louferlin.ca, that's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Whether you're looking to buy, sell, or curious about what that house on the corner might be going for, contact Lou Ferlin. Excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of this community, including our community on the Kenny and Renny Show. And for that, we are eternally grateful.
And you know what, Ken, I don't like to get too deep into like the sponsors all at once, but I wanted to throw this out because I like this topic. I want it out there. I've got the Johnson Group Got You Covered play of the game as being the arena and the scoreboard operators there in Detroit, throwing out a shout out to Rick and Judy Bonus and the health issues that they're going for. That is absolute class. Great on them. Great on that shout out. When I see those kind of things, and again, we know this, Rick Bonus is absolutely beloved throughout the entire league. This is a hockey family that has been doing this for decades upon decades. Loved seeing him in his jersey, right? Loved there. Ken's got a shot of it for those people who didn't see it, but it was up in the arena there. A picture of Rick Bonus, the head coach of the Winnipeg Jets, and his wife, who's had some health troubles, up on the screen there. A former Detroit Red Wing, Rick Bonus is. Wore the jersey, wore the Winnipeg Jets jerseys, an alumnus of both, treated with a ton of respect.
And the crowd went nuts. Move. And the crowd went nuts here when they announced Rick and they showed the picture. I mean, it's, as you said, like, this is not just a guy who's beloved by the places he's worked. He's beloved around the NHL, and his family is in everyone's thoughts.
Well, and that's Hockey Town for you, right? That's people who get it and they understand it, and good on that. Classy move for the We've Got You Covered play of the game, and a whole transition to a bunch of classy individuals at the Johnson Group. Do you run a small business in Canada? Well, look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. The Kenny and Renny OGs have shown us nothing but class over the years, and if you do business with them, you're going to see the exact same thing. Ken, I'm going to jump in just quickly here. I know I've been talking for a while here, but I wanted to get into the idea of Connor Hellebuyck, yes, playing well. But I'm going to leave you with this thought. I took a look at the Jets defense tonight. And yes, there was a point at which it looked like Detroit was rolling. They were getting a lot of chances. But the one thing you'll notice over the last number of games for the Jets is they've been getting offensive results because they've been getting to space in the middle, right? David Gustafson's goal, Mason Appleton's goal, even tonight, Nick Ehlers' goal, Kyle Connor's goal. These are all plays where the players on the Winnipeg Jets are getting to the middle with space to get that shot off. And the one thing I'll say, Connor Hellebuyck, I'm not taking away from him anything. He was great on this night, but he's not facing the backdoor tap-in goal that James Reimer is facing tonight. He's not facing Kyle Connor, or their Alex DeBrincat right in tight with space enough to get that shot off. He doesn't have to face that sizzler from Nikolai Ehlers. Now, yes, Detroit does get their one goal with the guy on the doorstep, but I would argue one of the reasons the Winnipeg Jets went from allowing on average 4.75 goals a game for their first 4 games down to 1.66 goals a game in their last 3 has everything to do with the fact that what they are allowing is the majority from the outside and that they're owning the middle of the ice.
Yeah, I mean, the high dangers, according to Natural Stat Trick tonight at even strength, were 8-7 for the Red Wings. So I don't know what Bick Ronis is talking about. The high dangers are basically even. And even with the power plays, it's 12-11 Detroit. So, I mean, I'd still say that it's a decently high number. I do think that Connor did have to work, but it hasn't been a barrage of chances. I agree with you there, but
I just don't see it as being wide open. I see they're contested, right? I understand that Detroit was getting some shots off in those areas, but they're not uncontested the way that the Winnipeg Jets are getting, I think, clear paths to the net and clear shots.
No, I agreed. They're doing a better job. I think there's still some room for improvement, and they're going to have to clean some things up as they continue to move along and the games get tougher. But yeah, I mean, I think that they're doing a pretty more than adequate job of improving in that regard for sure. I do think that there were still some quality chances, but I mean, he's not like overworked or taxed, Sean. I think that's totally fair, but I do think that he has been very sharp when he is needed to be, and that's the way it's going to be with this team. The Jets are trying to improve defensively. It's going to be a work in progress. That's something that's not going to happen overnight for this group. This is, they're doing a good job of chipping away at some of those habits. I haven't seen a lot of the bad habits creeping in. They're not cheating. They're not flying the zone as often. Like I said, I think that Mark Schiefele did an excellent job. I think I counted at least 2 times where he broke up what looked to be backdoor tap-ins with really good back checking and back pressure. I do think that the Jets could be a little bit crisper on their exits and doing a little bit better job of moving the puck efficiently, getting themselves going up the ice. But I do think that there are signs and strides that are being made by this group for sure. Yeah, like I said, they're not quite where they need to be yet, but that's normal for all teams. I mean, this is something that all teams are going to be going through. So, I do think that, like I said, I'm with you. I think they're improving defensively as a team. Their 5-man units are doing a nice job for sure, but they're going to have to tighten it up a little bit better for sure.
To me, okay, so this is going to be an interesting one. There was this game, if you think back on it, everyone will remember this one, when the Anaheim Ducks were retiring Teemu Selanne's jersey. Right? And so we went there, and in that game, the Jets, if you remember, they wore the white, like 93 era Jets jerseys with the Selanne on the back. They were all wearing number 13 Selanne on the back. And then on the other side for the warm-up, the Anaheim Ducks wore all their different iterations of their jerseys over the years with Selanne's number on the back as a way to honor him. It was a great tribute. I thought it was a really great tribute. Jets are up in that game. Remember, there was a couple massive hits. Byfuglien destroys Corey Perry at one point in center ice, and then I think he catches Getzlaf as well with 2 classic Byfuglien hits, right? Great game. Jets are up. Everything's going great. And then they end up blowing it late and lose the game. And there was a pattern of that year. The Jets were finding a ways to lose games that they were up ahead in. And I remember after the game, I asked Paul Maurice what he thought the problem was with his team not being able to close out games or blowing games. Blowing leads is what I'd said specifically. And Paul Maurice, it was very much a Paul Mauriceism, said, oh no, Sean, you don't blow leads against a team like that. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. And when the horn went, we just happened to be down. His argument was that basically, go 2 more periods and maybe the Jets win and so on and so forth. And it's just a little bit of a punching match, right? At the time, I thought it was a cop-out, and I still do think it was a cop-out because there was a lot of games that the Jets were blowing when they were up. But I do have a little bit of that. Like when I was watching the game tonight, I was like, okay, retrospectively looking back, I can see the argument that Paul Maurice is making, because one thing I see about this Jets team is there's a point in the first period where they just take over the game, right? And they're the dominant team. And so I do get that people are taking a look at, the second or the third period where they were really getting outshot badly. And they think, oh, well, we got to clean that up. We can't let that happen. But Rick Bowness has said it a number of times, like the other team's trying to win too, right? Like for the most part, no one's going to go. The only time I've ever seen, Ken, a team go out, especially in a meaningful game, and just absolutely dominate the opposing team from the drop of the puck right to the end of the 60 minutes was Game 2 of the Colorado Avalanche in the Stanley Cup Final against the Tampa Bay Lightning. It's the only time I've ever seen that before. Just complete and total domination. You can't have the puck, and if you somehow happen to get it on your stick, we're just going to take it back. That's not how hockey works, people. And so I guess, Ken, my counter to what you're saying is, like, of course there's moments of the game that the Jets could be able to clean up, but I guess my complete counter is the moments in the game where the Jets know that the other team is making its push. I still think they're keeping them to the outside, and they've got, I don't know how many times I've seen it this year, Ken. They keep their heads on their shoulders and they flip the puck down the ice and they don't quite ice it. And that's a sign to me of a team that is just really calm and cool in what they're doing. So they're shutting down passing lanes. Someone said it in the chat earlier today. They've got really, really good sticks. I think they're calm. I think they're level-headed, even when it looks like they're getting run over by a freight train. What it isn't is it's not tap-in goals on the back end where they absolutely blow their coverage. I think we lost Ken there, or I hope, let me know if you can see me right now, because I've noticed there's some issues. I think it's Ken. That's okay. But the point that I'm trying to get to, the point I'm trying to make and get to is just essentially the idea that the other team is going to make its push. And while they make their push, and you can expect it's going to happen, I think the Jets are handling it well, and it's not turning into them looking entirely lost in their own zone and like chance after chance after chance after chance, and Hellebuyck diving across the crease and making, spectacular saves. It's them basically, in my mind, keeping the puck to the outside, and the stuff that Connor Hellebuyck is facing, he's very capable to face. I think the Jets are on to something right now, and even when things don't look like they're going well, they're in more control than I think people are giving them credit for.
No, fair enough, and I'm not disputing that. It just, in the building today, it didn't feel as though it was well in hand. For me, it felt like they were going to tie the game. That's how it felt in the building, and I agree that they are staying much more calm. It just, to me, they got a little bit loose there for sure. Even Scott Arniel kind of conceded in our conversation that's how he felt, but he felt that when they got to the TV timeout, they kind of had a chance to reset and get settled. And there have been times where that game goes completely the other way and Detroit takes the lead, never mind not even being able to get the equalizer. So, like, I agree there's definite progress. I just think that there are certain things that still need a little bit tightening up when it comes to their defensive zone play. But it's definitely, I see improvement for sure. And I don't expect it to be perfect at this stage of the season. Nobody's playing perfect defense.
No doubt.
We just saw Vegas. Vegas probably the best defensive team in the league. They gave up almost 40 shots against the Jets. So all teams are working out some of the early bugs in the system. So, I do agree that there are a lot of positives when it comes to how the Jets are defending. I just think that they need to buckle down on a couple things, but that's what they're aiming to do. So definitely agree on that.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, let's Ken, do you have a Pristine Roofing? And I love this one. I love that it came from the audience. Do you have a Pristine Roofing wake up call of the game?
What is the wake-up call of the game? I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to get back to you on that one. I have a save of the game and I have a Lamplighter, but wake ups. I'm gonna have to circle back, or I'm gonna defer to you since you brought it up.
I'm gonna steal it. I'm gonna steal the.
You're on your game today. You're on your game.
It's not the traditional wake up like Kenny's swear word wake up. It's more like what this line did to wake them up. So there's a line in that first period right before the Jets kind of turn the game and get out and get those 2 goals. And by the way, 2 goals in a buck 0-2. We're back to what we talked about in the last show of the Jets being able to find a way to, they score a goal, and then the next line goes out and gets another one right away, right? That's the kind of thing that really breaks open games. We talked about it extensively in the last show. The Jets pulled it off again here tonight, and in the end, those 2 goals are all it took for them to win tonight. When Connor Hellebuyck's playing like this, if you can go out and score a goal and then jump on the other team and score another goal after that, not only does it give you the momentum that's hard to overcome, but Connor Hellebuyck playing the way he is right now, that just may be enough right there. But before that, and people will probably remember this, Dan Robertson did a good job of kind of like pointing it out. But Schiefele's line got hemmed in their zone. I think he said at one point, he's like, it looks like a power play here. Or maybe that was in the third period. But Schiefele's line gets entirely bottled up for the entire shift.
Yep.
And then I noticed, what does Scott Arniel do in the next shift? What line does he send out?
Pretty sure Lowry, but
it's the Lowry line. Yeah. It's the Lowry line, because you know that he's going to turn to Adam Lowry and say, Adam, I need you to halt this momentum in its tracks. And that's what that line got. Never mind the fact that they had 2 goals tonight here. Never mind Adam sets up a really gorgeous goal by Mason Appleton. The idea that this line can just go out and just entirely erase momentum that the other team builds up the way that they did in that moment kind of blows me away. And that's the wake-up call, right? That's basically Adam Lowry and his line went up to the Winnipeg Jets, who at that point were starting to fall behind in that game. And they said, guys, wake up. We're going to go out. We're going to show you how to do it. That's what they pulled off there. That's worth exploring. We could dive a little bit deeper into that, but I just wanted to say, to me, that is most definitely worth the wake-up call, the pristine roofing wake-up call. And you know the drill. Hey, if you need something done, exteriors, this is the time of year you want to get your attic checked out, people, because with the frost and all the different kind of things that happen at this kind of year, you're going to start to see this is when the problems will show up. So if you need North End Rick to come and root around in your attic, I don't think he's going to steal any family valuables or anything like that. He's going to go up there. He's going to look for airflow exchange, frost, and all those kind of things. But wake them up, people. Give them the wake-up call to North End Rick, 1-204-981-6289 at Pristine Roofing. And if you want to go through Pristine itself, just give them a call at 1-204-237-7663. Never mind the idea that there's a lot to take care of in the wintertime. I know people think roofing is a summertime gig. There's a ton of stuff exterior-wise that needs to be taken care of over the winter. And, hey, if you're thinking next year is the time to get your roof done, then now is the time to get on the list, because that list is building big time for next year. Ken, did you want to add anything to Lowry's line and just the way that they're able to kind of sway the momentum of games as they go?
One quick one. I like Turd Ferguson's wake-up call goes to the Jets PK for waking up. They had struggled mightily in the early going, and being able to keep that potent Red Wings power play off the board in those 2 chances is another good honorable mention there for sure. In terms of the Lowry line, just another exceptional effort. There's really not much else to say. I mean, like it's one of the best lines in hockey right now. People can say whatever they want. They're thinking of the old Red Wings. Like Larkin, DeBrincat, and Raymond is an NHL is an excellent line. May not be the best line in the league, but they're up there. So not just playing them even, but they outscored them 2-1. And I would say that they did a great job overall. I thought there were a bunch of moments where that line was able to really just calm things down, as you mentioned, Sean. Like Scott Arniel tapped his line on the shoulder. They understood the assignment. And they knew what they needed to get done. Got some offensive zone time, end up getting rewarded with a couple of goals, including the empty netter, and just a solid overall effort. Just really, that's what their job is. Some nights you're going to score, but if you can minimize the offensive impact of the other team's best line, then that's good news.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of defense, the idea of Mark Schiefele and his defensive game. Now, I know it sounds like I'm kind of counter to what I'm saying because I basically talked about a shift in which Scheifele's line got caved in, didn't get scored on. But it actually may have been the very same shift that you're talking about, Ken, that they were getting bowled over. Sorry, not that you're talking about, but you mentioned it on Twitter, I noticed, or X or whatever it's called. You had mentioned it. They were getting caved in, but there were 2 plays during that shift that Mark Schiefele kind of took chances away from the opposing team. I know he didn't have any points tonight, but I just thought this was another night that Mark Schiefele, hey, he didn't make an effect on the game on the scoreboard, but I think he still went out as the top line center of this team, and a guy who wears an A, and a guy who's playing the kind of hockey we may not have seen him play since 2018, had another night where he affected the outcome of the game.
Well, I thought Mark was excellent, and I would have said, like, you could have made a case for him to be one of the stars of the game, even though he wasn't on the score sheet. I thought his back checking in the first period especially was outstanding. And I really liked his game a lot. And there have been tons of games where Mark can have a quiet night and score 2 points, but this is one of those nights where Mark Scheifele's got to feel great about himself, about how his effort was, and that's the kind of game where the coaching staff will say, "Hey, don't worry about not getting any points. You were excellent out there today for the most part," and that's important for the Jets. That's where the two-way buy-in comes, when you can impact the game in ways other than just putting the puck in the back of the net. And Mark still had some dangerous chances. Like, let's not forget, I mean, on that play where Nemesnikov feeds Connor in the slot and it gets blocked by the defenseman, it bounces right out to Schiefele. Reimer is kind of sideways in the net, and Mark unloads a huge shot that's going 5-hole, and it's an absolute prayer shot by Reimer to close his pads, and it just prevents it from going in. But I mean, that line is really starting to get things cooking, and sometimes now they're getting a few bounces here too. Like, Josh Morrissey's pass cross ice goes off a shin pad, ends up on Kyle Connor's stick for 0.1 seconds, and it's in the back of the net before anyone knows what's happening on the Detroit Red Wings side. And as our friend from Montreal, Enor Tap, mentions, there's Kyle Connor with 5. Whether that means it's on the way to 45 or not isn't really important. But for Kyle, he's feeling confident. And, I mean, the other play, I think of it now that I mentioned Kyle Connor's name. Sean, that pass that Mark Schiefele made going across his body from behind the goal line for the backdoor pass to Kyle Connor, the only way it didn't go in is because it was kind of a little bit too low, and Kyle had a tough angle and was kind of caught between his feet. Otherwise, that's a backdoor tap. That pass is exceptional. Mark using his speed to go wide on Moritz Seider. And when Seider thinks he's going to a quiet area, Mark goes to the forehand and leaves the puck in a perfect place. I guess might have been perfect if he was a right-handed shot. But, I mean, still an exceptional high-end passing play by Mark Schiefele to Kyle Connor. And, that it's another sign of progress for Schiefele when he can have a game like that. And I think that Cole Perfetti, that line with Nemesnikov and Ehlers was exceptional also, I thought.
We'll get into that after this. I've got a couple of things burning a hole in my pocket right now. We love to reward our audience.
Oh, yeah,
it's not you or I who do it, but we take all the credit for the things that the keg does.
I don't take the credit.
And the well, then I take full credit, everybody, for gifting these things out to you people, with an assist, of course, from TransCanada Brewing Company and the keg. So I've made everyone wait long enough. I want to hand out the Lampies. I want to hand out the keg save of the game winners from last game. But in order to do that, we have to get through our own. So everyone share with me your Lampie of the game. Ken, what was your Lamplighter?
That's Ehlers for me. I mean, I've been talking about Nikolai Ehlers, sort of showing some signs and thinking that it's bound to be happening. And again, Ehlers with just an absolute classic. When I asked him if he had felt like he was due, and he's like, I don't really even feel like I've had any good chances. It was vintage. I hadn't really been close in any games, to be honest. So it feels good. It was just vintage Ehlers bluntness. I think of his best chance was alone in the slot, and he flipped it over the against LA, and he flipped it into the netting. I mean, But for him to be able to get on the board, yes, all the other. I mean, I loved what Lowry did to find Appleton to give them the insurance goal. That's probably a more timely goal based on the circumstance. But for me, lots of social media angst. When is Ehlers going to get going? When? This is a guy who has shown that when he's healthy, he can be a dynamic and often dominant player. I'm starting to see that line really get into a groove. Nemesnikov has helped in that, and you can really tell that Ehlers and Perfetti are reading well off one another, Sean, and that's a dangerous thing for an opponent. And I would say another piece of the important part of the puzzle for all the folks asking about ice time, Scott Arniel said, I need to get those guys out there a little bit more. He explained that when the game's tight, sometimes it's tougher to get those guys out on the ice in a good matchup, but he knows that he needs to get them some more ice time, and they're going to earn more ice time if they continue to play like this.
No doubt. Great pick. I agree. The one thing I always say, and I hope I'm not turning this into a negative, but just the idea, that shot that Ehlers lets go, when he releases that wrist shot like that, it reminds me of that puck that hit Brian Little, just because when he shoots and gets it off, it looks dangerous. Like, I looked at that shot tonight and I'm thinking, James Reimer, you're lucky you didn't get in the way of that thing, because when he gets it off, man, can he ever zing it. It's good to see him fully letting it go, and I think that is definitely a great pick, Ken, for the Lamplighter of the night, brought to you by TransCanada Brewing Company. Of course, you know what I think about it. The Nectar of the Gods, Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends from TransCanada Brewing Company. Share with us your Lamplighter. That's what you should be doing. If you do that, hashtag Lamplighter, people. Renny likes to yell at you every once in a while. If you do that, you're automatically entered to win an 8-pack of Frosty Delicious Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to gift you yours, you just have to head on down to the tap room on Keniston. Great beer, great pizza, great food, great everything. You know what to do. And that brings us to Colton B. 6119, who left a comment underneath the video. We've actually had an inordinate amount of winners from people commenting on the YouTube video afterwards. That's where Colton B came from. I know that Colton's been in the chat room. If he's the same guy, he's actually cracked me up a couple times with some funny comments. But Colton B 6119, if you're out there, if you're listening, I haven't seen you in the chat room. If you do get this though, and you should, before the game against Montreal, because if you don't, it's going to turn into a 16-pack. But get a hold of me, direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name, send me your email, and I will send you a gift card for your very own Frosty Delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. Ken, let's move on to the keg save of the game. Which one is it for you?
Yeah, honorable mention on the Michael Rasmussen wraparound on the backhand. It looked to be a tougher save than it really necessary, but I think I texted you during the third. This was one, Sean, where I think it's one like that you're describing. Hellebuyck makes it look pretty routine. Alex DeBrincat, during one of the power plays, has a clear look down the middle from the high slot, and Hellebuyck just kind of gets it. It was either on his shoulder and towards his neck that he held it, or underneath his arm that he just held it. And this is a guy who had 7 goals out of the gate in 8 games. So for me, being able to stop DeBrincat at that point of the game when it was still a 2-1 game, that to me is my keg save of the game. Just because of the circumstance and the shooter and just how dangerous DeBrincat has been for the Red Wings team this year.
He's been something else for them, but not on this night. Again, this is the highest scoring team in the NHL, comes in against the Winnipeg Jets, who absolutely shut them down. Why? Well, because Connor Hellebuyck was making a bunch of candidates for the keg save of the game. I think that's a good pick, Ken. The rest of you, I want to hear from you. You know what to do. Hashtag the keg save of the game. Tell us what you thought the save of the game was, and you're automatically entered to win a $50 gift card from the keg, where you can go and enjoy all that great food. Ken, are you going to take me to the keg at some point this year? Are we doing that?
Yeah.
Just to show me that you care.
That's what you do. Yes,
that's what you do. I do that
Sounds
with Mrs.
good.
Renny. She knows I care if I'm taking her to the keg. So all you out there, you got to get in for that. And the winner of that from the last show would be Matt Bergen, who direct messaged me on his picks on Twitter or X. Or God, that's just ridiculous. Matt Bergen, who is also known as @Swervin Mervin, is his actual handle.
Good handle.
I don't know if he's Mervin or Matt Bergen or whatever it is, but you know what to do. You already did it. You direct messaged me. It's SN Sean Reynolds. Do it again. Give me your full name and your email, and you will have your $50 gift certificate to the keg for sharing with us your keg save of the game. Hashtags, people, remember it all. Ken, let's get to the second line. You kind
visit one of the 3 locations across Winnipeg.
You bet. You kind of teased us like just a delicious, mouth-watering appetizer from the keg with your comments on line 2. Let's get into it a little bit more. The idea they want more time. That line is really coming together, and as good as pass as that was by Cole Perfetti, as good a finish as that was by Nick Ehlers, I just can't help to think like the glue that holds this all together is Vladimir Namestnikov.
Yeah, I mean, Ehlers, 6 shots on goal, 8 shot attempts, 2 hits, very involved. Perfetti, 1 shot on goal, 4 attempts. I mean, just elite vision on that pass. And I thought Cole looked for a shot a few more times today. And that's important, too, because we've talked about this before. He's got a really good release. And when he gets it off, he can be really dangerous. So I think he's starting to show some signs. And as I mentioned, this is not a criticism for Cole. It's not a punishment for him to move to the wing. And he's a guy that can flourish there, and that's the whole concept. I was sitting up in the press box with Dave Drinkle, who is the general manager of the Saginaw Spirit, and we were having a chat about Cole and how great a person he was, and he was really talking about Cole, because of COVID kind of shut down that season in the OHL. He felt that he really got robbed of an opportunity to really be an even more dynamic player had he been able to return to the junior level that year in Saginaw. And it's an exciting year for Saginaw. They're hosting the Memorial Cup, so obviously they're going to have a fun time in their community. But I thought when Ehlers is rolling, and he was really skating well, Sean, and not a lot of a ton of east-west. I thought he was very direct in his game today, and I just loved the way that he was. When he's able, he started, this, Sean, when Nikolai Ehlers is going in the offensive zone, he can make it really challenging because he winds things up in such an incredible pace. Like his acceleration in the offensive zone is really tough to handle for defensive teams. I really like his ability, A, to look for his shot, and B, to find an open man. And I really, I love Namestnikov's game again. I really thought he was doing a nice job on the PK. And, yeah, I mean, calling him the glue, it fits for that line. I mean, he's the defensive conscience, and he can make some really smart offensive plays as well. So I really like the way that line is trending. And you could tell, I mean, this is not just a normal, it wasn't just a sigh of relief for Ehlers. He basically wrapped his arm around Perfetti on the bench, and you saw him laughing. He's like, oh my goodness. It kind of you get that feeling where, not that you're never going to score again, but you're kind of wondering what it's going to take to get one. And when you score a pretty one like that, I've said it before, Nikolai Ehlers can be incredibly streaky. Same with Nino Niederreiter, Sean. Niederreiter is the kind of guy that can, I remember this from talking with Bruce Boudreau on the day of the trade. He can rip off some incredible hot streaks, and if both of those guys can get going offensively, it'll just make the Jets' offense a little bit more dynamic. We know that they've had great depth scoring throughout, but when those high-end guys are really going, they can be very dangerous.
I agree. Hey, you know what? I'm not going to dig in too much into the second line just because I think my comments from last show entirely reflect what I think about them. I think it's the same deal. Namestnikov just spends so much time drawing attention into himself. It creates the space those other guys are looking for. What I loved about Cole Perfetti is being up and making that pass from the point. I just think that guy's got vision from everywhere on the ice, and that bodes well. And I think, once again, Vladimir Mesnikov is just allowing that space to exist. And I just think they're going to keep building and building. You're right. I think they're going to hit their stride. But yeah, I've talked about this on the last show. If you want to see me dig deep into it, you can go back to the last show, give it a few more clicks. We'll take that, anything there. But I want to get into Ken, your ideas, and you talked a little bit to Scott Arniel tonight. You've got a great relationship from him over all the years that you've covered him. But Ken, it's pretty remarkable if you think about it, the times that Rick Bowness has been out and Scott Arniel has walked in, and like I'd said last show, he's got this very obvious way of being like, listen, let's honor Rick Bowness here. And this is, Rick Bowness is still the guy running this team. And that while he's not here, what he says to us on the phone helps. And, we so know what he wants that as coaches, it's easiest to coach and be a substitute for him. But I don't think that Scott Arniel gives himself, and he's not the kind of guy who would. But I don't know that there's enough talk out there about what a great job Scott Arniel has done under what could be trying circumstances, with Rick Bowness having to leave the team at the times that he has, and just how well this team has responded. Why do they respond so well, Ken?
Scott just has a calming presence. He's a very intense individual. I saw that a lot covering the Manitoba Moose over the years, even especially when he was head coach and took their team to the Calder Cup final. One exchange, one classic. It was funny, the Moose never played the Hershey Bears, Sean. So the Hershey Bears are coming to town. They've got all this history. They called it a measuring stick kind of weekend, and they ended up getting they got the doors blown off of them, Sean. Absolutely. I think the cumulative score was 8-2. And I was not trying to be a smart ass, but I said, Scott, you went into this weekend series looking at these games as a measuring stick. I said, how do you think you measured up? He goes, you measure it. It was a very short scrum. But anyways, he has a calming presence about him. He's a guy who's been around the game. He's been around a lot of great coaches, played at a very high level, played every role involved in hockey, NHL, IHL, loves the game, had an opportunity in Columbus. It didn't go as well as he had hoped. He had been knocking on the door for a lot of other jobs, interviewing, getting close, runner-up, everything else. And, this is a guy who wants to be an NHL head coach again at some point when the circumstances are right. And right now he's showing that he has the ability. I know it's early and everything else. He has the ability to be a very good leader of men. And I think that you're right. I mean, he's a guy that deserves a lot of credit. He's, some people were saying, he's only back because he has ties to True North. No, he is back because he's a smart and well-respected hockey coach who knows what he's doing. And he's showing that right now with Rick being unavailable.
I'll say it. I just think that this is a guy who I think has shown in this little bit of addition that's happened a couple of times here now. This is a guy who would be ready for another chance, another crack at being a head coach in the league. I agree with you 100%. I don't have anywhere near the track record that you have with him, but boy, oh boy, I'll tell you, he's been so open with me since he showed up. Always willing to talk, always really great. He never ducks an answer, right? And I think people know this about me. The people who can just come out and be bluntly honest at all times. As a journalist, you love that, right? Because to me, that shows a guy who's confident in himself because he's not afraid of the truth, right? We're not doing this right now. I know you're a perfect example. It's not through Scott Arniel, but Rick Bowness saying in the first, after that game against Vegas, listen, we can play great hockey all we want, but if we keep making mistakes and allowing 4 to 5 goals a game, we're not going anywhere. Well, what's happened since he did that, Ken? They've entirely turned things around. So to me, that's a coach that says bluntly, we need to fix this or we're not going to win. And what happens? They go out and fix it. So to me, when the coaches do that and they're bluntly honest, it shows confidence in their ability to see a problem and confidence in their ability to turn that problem around and not hide from it. I think the guys who hide the fact that there's a problem from the media are typically the guys who aren't quite sure they know how to turn it around, or they definitely don't want the media, saying oh, you said 5 games ago that this was a problem and it still hasn't been fixed. They don't want us turning on the clock for it. So in that vein, Rick Bowness has always been very honest, and Scott Arniel follows right in that with like less of a brazen and more of a quiet confidence. But that quiet confidence has shown through every time he's stepped up to the plate here. And I think the one thing about those quiet coaches like that, Ken, I think they're great coaches for young teams. I think they're great coaches for veteran teams. I think they kind of fit anywhere, which to me, I think once again bodes well for Scott Arniel and the idea that at some point he's going to end up being a head coach again in the NHL. And Ken, if I was a betting man, which I've established time and time again on this podcast that I am not, my bet would be that that would be right here in Winnipeg. Ken, anything to say before we go?
Yeah, just a quick one. Patrick is wondering, Scott Arniel didn't bite. He dropped the Rick Bowness special, the We'll See, about Laurent Brossoit, whether or not he'll start on Saturday in Montreal. I expect him to start in Montreal, whether people are willing to tell me or not. Connor Hellebuyck's played great here, but he's ready for a break, and then he will be ready to play Monday night against Blake Wheeler and the New York Rangers as they roll into town at the end of the Western swing here.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, that's it for us. Wanted to say before we do go, if you appreciate the conversations happening in this space, please support our sponsors who fight to keep those conversations going in this space for us. That's Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, the Johnston Group, Sweet Lou Furlan, Pristine Roofing, the Keg, all 3 kegs, all 3 locations across the city, and of course, Trans-Canada Brewing Company, who keeps you all out there filled and full with great pizza and great Lamplighter Amber Ale, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We will see you after the Montreal game, where both Ken and I will be in Montreal. It's a Hockey Night in Canada game. Renny will be doing the rinkside reporting for you there. Hopefully I'll have some good stuff for you, but we will have good stuff on Kenny and Renny after the game, and we can't wait to see you until after that. Bye, everybody.